Hi, and welcome to this new series Chris Cooke and I, Peter Stone, are putting together on the theme of connected leadership. Chris and I have been together for over 20 years now, working in the fields of cultural transformation, leadership behaviour, management development. And we've put this series together just to explore some of the ideas around leadership and create some sharper, clearer, and hopefully some newer, more modern distinctions. And Chris, you've thrown the one today of divide et impera. So please, what's that all about?
Before I go into that, Pete, let's talk about hit or myth, shall we? So the idea that I shared with you before for this is that we'll make an assertion, something people might believe to be true or might believe to be false about leadership. And we'll use that as a springboard. You might remember the old jukebox jury.
Yeah,
Remember, hit or miss.
yeah.
So my cunning play on that was hit or myth.
Hit or
Is it
myth.
a leadership hit or leadership myth? And to start at the beginning then, because this will be a series, but before I'd start being erudite, being classical, being a bit of a scholar, with a little bit of Latin. So this is why I've thrown out divide et impera, which I think is the correct pronunciation, or close enough. Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar, you might remember, invaded Britain in BC 55, 54. Roman emperor and general, and his theory of leadership, divide and conquer. So I have got some notes here. I looked up what it really meant, and it said this: gaining and maintaining power by breaking up larger concentrations of power into pieces that individually have less power than those who are implementing the strategy. So breaking up into pieces. And so it is classical historically, but it's also classical in it seems to be how we organize every business organization. So we break our organizations into geographies, divisions, practices, teams, and we have leaders of those things. So you can be leader of the business, leader of a division, leader of a practice, leader of a team. So leadership cascades down that classical hierarchy of power. When you work a career, leadership, as we do, leadership development, it's climbing the ladder. You start as a team member, you become a team leader, and off you go. Then you become a project leader or a project manager, and then you become a manager of managers, and then ultimately you hit a leadership position. So we know this, and it's endured. Maybe it's endured for 2,000 years, maybe longer. So, hit or myth, Pete? What do you think?
Well, it's a model that's definitely endured. I'll give you that. But my assertion would be it's not a model that's fit for purpose in the modern era. I think if I look at some of the disruptions that take place these days, technology disruption, data disruption, if I look at the regulatory environment, if I look at the commercial demands and the scale of those demands on organizations, it needs a different model that allows for more adaptability, more responsiveness, greater capacity to transform, greater levels of agility, and some of the problems and solutions that exist out there and the opportunities, they don't just sit in a small confined unit. They span organization boundaries. They span the enterprise up and down and diagonal. So for me, the opportunity that exists is to create a new model of what I would call distributed leadership, where we are looking to reduce the power of the few and increase the influence of the many.
Okay, kind of understand that, but you still need a chain of command. People still need the direction. You need the authority to flow, and it's often said in leadership training, as we well know, everyone can be a leader, but really not everyone can be a leader, because that would be just a kind of recipe for chaos, and not everyone's in that position.
Well, that's right. If we assume that leadership is a role in an organization, then not everybody can be in that kind of leadership role in that hierarchical model, because there's only a few by definition at the top. My view is that we think of leadership not as a role, but think of it as a mindset and think of it as a behavior or patterns of behavior. So what we can do is start to create leadership throughout the organization and have people thinking and behaving in ways in which they are influencing their organization, influencing the environment. They're making an active choice to take accountability, to put themselves at cause, and to make a difference. So the role of the leader in a hierarchical sense, in my view, is about creating leadership around the organization, developing that mindset, developing those behaviors, equipping people to think and behave differently, and then connecting them up. So the aggregate impact is one of extended distributed leadership spanning the organization, where people individually and collectively, as I say, are taking accountability and choosing to make a difference to the organization.
Okay. But you still need structure. You could have a leadership, as you say, widely distributed, but there's still going to be a structure of reporting lines, controls. You can be in, you say leadership's not a position, but it is. You're in a position of, you have authority, you have the authority that comes with that role. I call that formal authority. And if you're used to the exercise of power, and that comes with that role, and then you're distributing it to other people, what then is the role of the leader with the formal authority then? How does that work?
Well, there'll still be the few people in leadership positions, let's say, who, as you say, they will control resources. They will have ultimate authority over financial and human resources. But I think the role changes. I think the role becomes one less about deciding what everybody does and leaving it to the managers to create execution paths. The role becomes about setting context, giving people direction, helping people to understand the broader organization context, the strategic context, the customer context, and helping people to then have the skills or develop the skills and the behaviors to work out individually or collectively what difference can be made to improve the organization, to realize some of the opportunities, to solve some of the problems. But they're doing that with their peers, they're doing it across the organization. They're no longer just waiting to be told what to do. They're no longer waiting for the big decisions to be made. Now, sometimes it relies on a few people to make broader organizational decisions. But the role of the leader can become and should become one of liberator, context setter, enabler, equipping people with confidence and with capability, as I say, to make the difference for themselves.
Okay. So enabler, not conqueror.
Enabler, not conqueror.
So I think I can see the vision, because we're making a distinction between a leadership position, this position where you hold authority and accountability, and leadership as a mindset, leadership behaviors. It is quite, if I think coming back to the classical model, it's not really what people are used to. So if I've worked my way up to a leadership position, I've been through the development programs, I have that view of, as you say, I take the decisions, I create the context, I'm the leader, I'm pointing the way, I'm making choices between who to promote, who not to promote. But if we're talking now about inculcating leadership as a behavior more broadly, then I suppose it's a paradigm shift on both sides. I think it's a change of the understanding of leadership I've been working towards all my career, maybe decades. And also for the people who are now having leadership made available to them, we all have to learn new capabilities. So as somebody with authority, I have to learn new capabilities. Yeah. And as somebody being asked to step up to leadership and have maybe authority without the position, they're going to have to learn as well. So it's quite a different game, Pete, isn't it?
It is. It is a very different game. And the mindset shift is moving away from one of formal authority and thinking about influence, thinking about how I can influence. And it's not for everybody. So I think one of the skills of the leader, in terms of the role of leader, is to start to identify what are the requisite behaviors, what is this mindset, what does it look like in practical terms, and start developing those capabilities, and working out actually which people is this going to be suited for. So that gets you into recruiting to a different model. It gets you into career paths that look very different. So not everybody wants to be a leader by authority, but they want to exert leadership and they want to have influence on an organization. So take experts, where they're expert engineers, for example. They don't want to run big organizations and have hundreds of millions of resources available to them and lots of people in a big division, but they do want to exert influence on the organization. They do want to impact the commercial performance. They do want to influence the development of other people's capabilities, but they're doing it from a position of being an expert, as opposed to being the leader by authority. So you can still develop leadership behaviors amongst that community and create the network of experts, and that network can have influence across the organization. So the role of the person at the top becomes one of creating these networks, enabling and equipping these networks to exist throughout the organization.
So that's interesting. By distributing leadership, you're really separating management experience from leadership experience as well. So you could develop an expert to become a leader without them necessarily ever having been a manager of a large organization. So making that distinction in the skill set as well. So as we distribute leadership, we create new career paths, new opportunities and new possibilities for people.
So leadership becomes about impact and influence, not about authority and power.
Okay, yeah.
That's the shift.
So informal authority and the development of informal authority rather than just the exercise of the formal authority. I think this is something actually we might continue in another session, but let me tell you what I'm taking away now. We're saying the classical hierarchy of divide and conquer serves us well, but with the pressures and the need for change in large organizations, it's not agile. The distributed model of collaborative networks of influence and people combining and using their expertise to take the organization forwards is the way ahead. And that anchors back to a lot of the client work that we do as well, the developing experts as leaders. So today, let me draw a line. I think we're saying divide et impera, perhaps a myth, and we should be seeing distributed leadership as the hit to work to, as the hit. But it is an effort, and you do have to change mindsets and behaviors to get there.
It is absolutely an effort. It's a shift in mindset fundamentally. And I am saying divide et impera is a myth.
Okay. Well, people listening to this or viewing this, there are comments. Perhaps we'd be interested to know, do you agree, disagree? What's your experience of anything you've heard from us today? And this will be continued. I think in the next session, we're going to talk a little bit more about the interplay between leaders and their followers. So that's something to look forward to, Pete.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.